We're running. It's on. I don't know what happened, but it started all on its own.
It'll just start. So we either restart it or we let it go.
Okay. Hi.
Okay, so
Okay, we're laughing because we all just discussed what our criteria was before we left the house. Carol doesn't leave the house without her earrings. I consider it adequate if I'm fully clothed.
well, you're talking about your mom doesn't leave without lipstick on. I'm thinking like Ramon's grandma, she won't leave without her eyebrows on, and then her eyebrows. And then that. And then and some of us who are really blonde kind of we need to draw on our own eyebrows.
And me, I just want to be dressed.
I want to be dressed.
That's it. Okay, because you just never know. The time may come where I forget. Yes.
So anyways, yeah. All right.
Weekly dose. Here we go. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Lori.
This is Lori. And we're ready. It is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday. All right. Okay, so
a couple of things have gone. Last week they finished the beginner's quilt.
Yes.
If you checked out Facebook, you saw pictures of their quilts. Yes. They were beautiful.
They worked hard and they were gorgeous quilts.
I love seeing the creative way people put their fabrics together, and you see their color choices, and the range is huge, and they still look fabulous.
Yeah, and their sense of accomplishment when they got that.
Everybody feels really good.
Yeah, so if you missed it, let us know if you're interested in, because we do run them a couple times throughout the year. So just let us know and we'll start creating a new one, a wait list, so we can let you know when they pop up and get those both out in Surrey and the Chilliwack store.
Yes.
Let both stores know.
Yeah.
We'll get them going. We finished our fabric sale, spring cleaning.
That one's over.
So, and of course, we found empty shelves. Lots of empty shelves, because, when you spring clean and you clear things out, we have empty shelves. So, keep your eyes open. There is new fabric on its way. It should be here anytime. I've got a sneak peek at a couple.
Ooh.
I did. I like there's some of the new stuff. There's some really cute unicorn fabric coming.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't have a little girl to use it for, so
you can be little.
Well, I could be little. Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. I think I'm past that point. So I have to get Addie to give me a little granddaughter. I think she said that she's at the point where now she has another kid, she starts losing vital organs.
Yes, she was mentioning that the other night when I was over.
Yeah. I gotta find another little girl to do that. But there's some of that. There's some other really pretty fabric coming in. Just a variety of stuff. And this is the first of many. The first skid or two of many coming.
Yeah, at least one skid.
At least, yeah. So we've got that coming, but the thing is, we still are on our spring cleaning.
Yes.
And that. So we have patterns on sale.
Yes.
Okay. So basically we have over 500 different types of patterns in the store, not including Kimberbell. So there's still the Kimberbell clearance of the older stuff. So this isn't included in this one. This is a different sale. And so there's 500 different types of things, patterns.
OESD.
Yeah. OESD. Not every pattern is on sale, but a good majority of them.
Yeah.
Of them are. So there's the OESD, Hoop Sisters, whole bunch of different patterns. So 500.
So
if you're
check
bored,
out the website and have some fun.
Yeah, if you're bored, we'll get you lots of stuff going.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have that, and then Tom wanted us to remind everyone that there's 272 days until Christmas.
Yes.
So actually, it would be a good time to buy those patterns because you only have 272 days to
So
get
you need
the stuff
to get
done
ready.
for Christmas.
Yes, that's right. Because you know how we scramble at the end. Let's start now.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I say that,
So we can
but
get fabric and all that kind of
it
stuff.
doesn't happen. That's okay.
All right, so upcoming classes, we have Sit and Sew.
Sit and Sew starts again on Monday.
And then we have E&B and me. You know.
Not next week, the week after. Oh, it is next
It's
week.
next
Sorry.
week. It's not
This
tomorrow.
is-
It's
this
next
is-
Thursday.
This is the last week of March.
Yes. And then we have Getting to the Finish Line, which is April 6th. So again, just coming and working on a whole bunch of those.
Anything that you think you might be needing, you would like to ask some questions, or you want somebody to help you out, or, you know, you just want to get together as a group and socialize, and so getting to the finish line is the perfect way to do it.
Yeah. We have paper piecing class.
Upcoming, yeah.
Upcoming.
That was my
So
request.
so that's some stuff. So check out the website.
Yeah.
Always check out our website and the classes because stuff gets added all the time and this and that. So that should be added here shortly. And then we've got some evening serger classes in Chilliwack.
So
if
coming up.
coming. So got a serger wanting to learn serger or whatever. So we've got. Who's the teacher? Monica. There we go. I can see her face and I'm like, so Monica did an excellent job.
Oh,
I mean, she was here in Surrey during the spring break or whatever for day one. So now she's teaching some evening ones out in Chilliwack. So
we ended up having 3 level 1 serger classes here.
yeah. And then the 2 and 3 will be stretched out.
Probably sometime in June.
Yeah. So it just, So if you want serger classes, that's what you want to do.
Yep.
She's an
Or
excellent
you know what?
teacher.
If there's anything that you think of that you might like to have, make a suggestion. That's why we're getting the paper piecing, because I saw a pattern I've never paper pieced. I want to try it because there's a specific pattern I want to do. So Rita's teaching a class.
All right. So
on screen, am I?
no. All right. So what we're going to take and do today is we want to.
But it's a very nice machine.
Talk about themes.
It seemed like a good idea.
Okay, that's a groaner.
Okay, I hang around Tom too much. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
I know. Yeah.
do we share the one that he had?
No, because I'll only laugh again, and it was pathetic.
Oh, come on. It was funny. It was hilarious.
Okay.
He was telling us that he's seen a guy walking down the street with a crab.
A clam.
Oh, clam. Sorry, crabs.
On a leash.
On a leash. And then he started wondering. And then that, how he could walk with a pulled muscle.
Okay. Those of you who know Tom are well aware of his sense of humor. You might not be aware of the fact that mine is right there too. So I find it funny.
I think all of ours are there just because it has to be. All right. So let's get to the
Seams.
meat of
The meat of our discussion.
the meat of
today.
our discussion, which is seams. Okay. So when you're putting a quilt together, aside from the fabric, I mean, seams are important.
Yeah.
It's
It's what's holding it together.
It is what's holding it together. So there's a couple of different thoughts behind your seams. When you're you put your seam together, how do you iron it and what do you do with it?
Yes.
Okay. So the first, we kind of do things when we were taught to sew. It's, this is what you do and this is why you do it. Or not even why you do it, just you just do it. And so then you teach and all that kind of stuff. But I've talked to a lot of different people because as we're kind of doing this, I've been doing a lot of research because there's so many different thought out there. And it depends on where you grew up, depends on where you live. Like everybody has their way of doing things. So I'm absorbing this information.
Yeah.
And so I've come across people who will sew their seam and then they fold it to the one side. And then some like to have theirs where they'll iron their seam open and then there's spinning the seam and all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what the difference is, why you might want to do one more than the other. Now, by no means are we sitting there saying you have to do it this way. Okay, we're just giving you guys information that there's other ways of doing it.
Yes.
And for some of you, I know I asked somebody, I says, well, why do you fold your seams over? And they're going, I don't know, that's just the way I taught. Well, here, we'll give you some ideas of why
we do it.
Why we do it. So when you understand why, it makes it a little easier, especially if you don't like ironing and you're going, why do I have to iron it? Now you know why. Okay, so let's talk about folding your seam to the side.
To the side.
Okay. Usually you fold it to the dark side, and in that, just the reason you choose the dark side is simply then it's not being seen, huh? We have cookies. Okay, I have yet to iron a seam to the dark side and got cookies, okay?
Yeah, nobody hands me cookies, Joel. No.
Hence, remember we were talking about the sense of humor around here.
That's right.
Okay. This is why we do it in the corner.
Yes, this is very true. There's nobody there adding to the chaos.
So, when you fold it to the dark side, you don't get that shadowing.
Yes.
That's why we kind of
and that's the reason for it.
That's the reason, well, it's like, oh, you want to fold it to the dark, to the dark side so you don't get shadowing. But there's more to it than that. When you iron your seam and you fold it over to the one side, so both flaps go to the one side, whether you decide you want it dark, light, or it doesn't really matter. It strengthens your seam.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it gives that seam strength, so it's less likely to come apart, because otherwise it's just relying on
the thread.
So when you iron your seams and you iron them open, the only thing that's holding those two fabrics together is your thread.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So out of the two things which are most likely to fail in a quilt, is it the fabric or the thread? Which is most likely the thread.
It would be most likely the thread.
It would.
Chances are you're using quilt cotton.
Well, yeah, especially if
if
you're using good quality quilter's cotton, it's going to be the thread.
Yeah.
Threads go through so many different things that we aren't aware of sometimes. I mean, how many of us have, had a grandma or a friend who's like decides to get rid of their quilting supplies? I know how hard that's like. Why would you do that? But we don't always know what that thread has been through,
or the quality.
Thread, heat, sun, all of those kind of things affect the thread. So even if you get a really good quality cotton, if it's been through some less than ideal environmental things, it's going to weaken.
Just like fabric breaks down, thread will break down.
Yeah. And then depending on the age.
Yes.
The older the thread is, the more likely it is to break down.
Absolutely.
And I know there's been a lot of people that I've talked to over the years that would tell me, it's like, oh, I went and, I don't like the cost of thread when at my quilt shops, I just buy the thread at the dollar store. Okay. So it's not very good quality.
No.
Okay. You really do get what you paid for. And so even if it says coats and some of those things, they still have levels of their quality stuff. And so you spend all of this time working on a quilt, and then you use a very poor quality thread, and then you open your seams, and that's what's holding your quilt together. After a few washings, it might take a year or two, but it's going to fall apart. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then so that's why it's really important to understand why you're doing something and the purpose behind it. Because sometimes, like if you're doing a stack and whack, and you've got all of those those like layers,
8 to 16.
You're going to want to have those seams open to reduce some of the bulk.
Okay. Yeah, otherwise you got it.
So then you want to make sure
levels up the quilt.
You want to make sure that you're using a very good quality thread that the history. So brand new, good quality, because that's what is holding your quilt together. Yeah. Whereas if you're doing something and you're folding it over, if you still want good quality thread.
Well, absolutely.
But you've got the fabric that is helping to support that seam.
Yeah, you're spending so much time making a quilt, and generally speaking, they're for a special person, a special event. You don't want it to start falling apart, even within a year. Like, I'm hoping some of the ones that I'm passing on to my daughter and my grandchildren, they'll be using for decades. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Because I want them to look at it and go, oh, Grandma gave me that. Yeah.
So that's part of one of the reasons why. So, when it's folded over, and it helps support and give that seam extra strength. The other thing that works really good is when you fold over, it helps with locking. Oh, and I did grab the right too. Locking your seams together.
Yeah. They'll
Okay.
nest really well.
They'll nest. So I'm just going to tip this down so you guys can kind of see this a little bit better. Okay, so I'm making a 9 patch. I gotta back it up. Okay, well, I want it right here. When you fold over to the dark side, and this just so it makes it easier, but you fold over and you fold them, iron them so that they're flat. When you go to put the two seams together, they butt up. I don't know if you guys can see that. Right next to each other. Can you guys? Hopefully you guys can see that. And when they lock, see, I'm trying to squish them apart using my fingers. They're locked in there. They're not going. So when I take this over to the sewing machine, so I've got it and I can feel it locked together. When I take this over to the sewing machine, I don't even have to have this pinned at this point because it's going to stay and it's going to lock. And then when I open it up, I get all my little perfect points. If I was to open these up and do them flat this way, so then what I have to take and try and do, I didn't bring any that were, then you have to use a pin, and then it never fails. So you got this and you got this pinned. It never fails. The minute I sit there and undo those pins and start sewing, it shifts.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
And then I take it out, and then I'm saying shift in a different format.
Your anti-karma word?
My anti-karma word. And then then I have to get out my seam ripper and undo it. And sometimes I'm like doing it 3 or 4 times, and then I get frustrated, and then I throw the thing at the machine and say, screw you, and walk away. So this way, I was doing I want to say Carrie copycat quilt, but I don't copy. So she's copied me, even though I did it second. But there was 12 rows that I was locking rows together, and it's huge. All of my points are perfectly on because as I locked it, I could keep sewing and moving, and it wasn't coming unlocked.
That's right.
Okay, so having them folded to one side, whether you go to the dark side or the other side or whatever, just being opposite and locking, that takes your quilt to the next level. It really does. It
really
makes
does,
those points dead on. Now, I know with practice, you could probably do it the other way. And for some, that's all that they've ever done and all they've ever known. And they're perfectly happy doing that. And that's fine. It really is about what you're comfortable with and what you know and what you like doing. The key is sometimes learning something new because you didn't know.
Yes.
Great, something new, and you want to try something new, but understanding why you're doing it and some of the pros and cons of doing it that way.
Also, these suggestions are suggestions, but there also can be project specific.
Yes.
Some you're going to do one way, some you're going to do another, simply because the project itself dictates what you're doing. So we're not advocating one way or another. We're simply
giving you information and when you know that there's another way of doing it, like you said, it's project specific.
Yeah.
And so I know some people who, they do it a certain way and it works great when they do one type of a quilt, but then they're fighting it and they're having so much problem trying to do it another way with a different type of quilt. Well, that's because probably the other way of ironing or pressing your seams would work better and give you more control or more
Yes.
this and that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a case of whatever. You plan these things out,
You
right?
do.
Like you're looking at
You do.
it, and as you move forward, you make a different decision. But having that knowledge gives you something else to
Yes.
to try if it wasn't working.
It wasn't
one
working.
way.
So I know one of the things that a lot of people complain about when you fold the seams one way or the other is that a lot of times it'll create bulk in those seams. And so another trick that has been out there is to spin the seams.
Right.
Okay. Now I have heard, and you've heard, and we've all heard a whole bunch of different, pros and cons to this. And a lot of people have sat there and said, well, I tried taking and spinning my seams, and the seams have come apart in there as soon as I watch them, because you've got to trim. So there's a way that I've seen of doing spinning your seams. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Okay. So you get the strength of the seam by folding it to the one side.
Right.
And then because you're also going to, in the corners or where those seams come together, iron them flat so they're all open seams. So it's not quite as bulky.
Right.
So you still have the strength and you still have that. But there is a couple of key factors you kind of want to watch. Okay. So there's a couple places where I've seen where you're like, you're trimming seams and you're trimming fabric or the threads or everything else like that. You don't want to trim threads. Okay. As soon as you start trimming threads,
That's what they're called.
that's okay. So I'm going to show you a trick that we seen. Now, please bear with me. I can do it, but as soon as I start kind of showing it and you guys are looking at it opposite, it kind of throws me off a little bit. So I'm going to try and do this, but just bear with me that you guys are going to see it a little different than I'm doing it. And I'm trying to see it from your point of view and from my point of view. And then I just totally throw off my whole thing. So we're just going to be bare. All right. So we're going to flip this down again so you guys can see my mat. Okay. So this is my nang patch. Isn't it pretty? Look at my corners. See? They match. I'm just very
so proud.
I am, because the thing is I've been sewing for a long time. Okay. And a lot of the stuff was self-taught. And I'd miss some key points here and I'd forget and all this kind of stuff, but getting my seams to match was one of my hard things. And it is because I wasn't locking my seams. I didn't really learn it and understand it.
Right.
And once I learned it and understand it, so I'm proud of this.
And you should be. Like, everybody wants them to look like that.
They do. And so, I've been doing it for a while and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter how many years I've done it. I'm still proud of myself.
Every time I see something like that come together perfectly, I just get that little bit of that happy generation.
We all need to praise the work that we've done that's
yes.
good, because we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Okay, so back to our seams. Okay, so you've heard of spinning your seams.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, it's not this.
They'd be spinning the block here.
Well, okay, but it's got seams.
Okay.
Or else the headphones and the club.
Okay.
I got a funny about Ramon.
That's all right.
It's funny. All right. Anyways, so when I've done my blocks, okay, so you've got, I'll show it here first. So I have, I'll make sure I do this way. So I have, okay, I'm trying to do this so you guys can see. When you sew the three, so I've got these as my first seams.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to sew these all together to get this block.
Yeah.
So then I have this seam here, which is reinforcing this seam here because it's going to cross over. But so this is my strong seam. This is my reinforcement seam. Okay. When you go to spin your blocks, you want to make sure, or not blocks, seams. This flap here, you want them going all the same way. Right now, they're all pressed to my dark side. So this is somewhere where people who like it pressed only to the dark side might get a little bit, because some of these seams are going to be against my lighter side. For this block, you would see a little bit of shadowing because it is a thin or lighter block, but darker blocks, it doesn't really matter. So again, this might be one where you like the spin seamed look and the strength behind it, but you don't like it on this quilt because you're going to see it. And so again, you know, preference and taste. So what you want to take and do is, if you notice, like, because you're not back stitching or whatever, if you pull on these seams, they will pull apart. I'm not going to yank it because then it'll go all the way here and just whatever. But the threads will come apart a little bit. Okay. But, so those are the ones I want to worry about. Those are the ones I'm going to use. If I have to cut a thread, I'm doing the wrong ones, because as soon as you start cutting the thread. So I'm going to lift this up, okay, because this is my main thread. I'm going to lift it up. This is going this way. This is, so I want this one to go this way. So they're all facing. So they either all go counterclockwise or all go clockwise, whichever way you want it to do. Okay, and it is going to depend on your main thread. So this one here, I'm going to lift this up, and if I just start to fold this open, okay, this is where my seam was stitched together. I can pull that piece apart, and then all of a sudden it stops where the thing is. So this part here flips this way, this goes that way, and that. So then I would iron that, and then I got a little mini little block. Okay, so we're going to pretend I ironed that down. I didn't bring my iron. I'm going to turn my block. Okay, this is my main seam. Okay, so I lift this up. Okay, this is going this way. So, okay, I only have to worry them going counterclockwise or clockwise on this one. This one is going to be different. If I try and do it so that they're all going the same direction, it's not going to work, because this is my main seam. So I lift up my main seam, okay, and we're going to lift it up, and then I open it up here and just kind of pull it apart here, and these little pieces here are going to come apart. This gets ironed down, that gets ironed down, okay? So this is where it will lay against. And so even though these ones are going counterclockwise, these ones are going to go clockwise. Right. Okay. So you always want to find your main seam, your solid seam, and open it up there, and then it'll lay down. Now, these ones are coming apart a little bit easier because I was playing with them. I think all of mine. This one. No, I didn't play with this one. So again, this one, brand new, not played with. Pull it up. Okay, because this is my main seam. Pull it up. And then here. So what I'll take and do is, I know this one's going to come down this way. And then I just open them up so that they lay that way. Okay. And then I'm just going to want this to go this way. Yeah, that's my main seam. Okay, so this seam here, fold that way. That seam folds that way. So they're going to fold opposite of each other. So that's how you know which way to go. You open it up. One comes this way, one goes that way. Right. Okay. So you don't get confused. Okay. Main seam, that way and this way. And those threads will just come apart a little bit easier. If I have to cut them, then I've got the wrong threads. Right. Okay, and you can try. I've been, I mean, I'm not like Hercules or anything, but if you can
pull on them,
and it's
I was pulling on them earlier.
Yeah, so if it's not coming apart, so I know that is still locked and solid. So there's your 3 kind of your main seams and why you want to do, fold
Any of
over,
them, or-
lock them.
Yeah.
And then that you do need to iron them and press them because that does help set them. So whether you do it to the side, whether you do them flat
Open.
and open, because you're going to get both thoughts.
Of course.
But again, the biggest thing is it's going to depend on your quilt and who it's for. I don't know that I would risk doing open seams on a
kid's quilt.
on a kid's
wouldn't.
quilt.
I wouldn't, because
But the thing is,
it's used too much. It's played with too much. It's laundered far more frequently.
yeah.
So yeah.
So I like them pulled over to the side, locked. It makes locking so much easier. Now, these are our thoughts, and this is kind of what we've been taught.
Yeah.
We're opening it up for discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We do
sure.
ask that you share what works for you, but please be mindful that everyone has different thoughts.
Yes.
So in the comments, go ahead and write down, I like using, them folded over to one side because of.
Yes.
And if you want to comment on something else that someone says, it's like, oh, I do it this way, that's a great idea. But please,
Absolutely.
we want to keep it positive.
Yeah, be kind.
And we know, our customers are kind.
Yes.
And so we're not really worried about it. We're just putting a little caveat on there, just
we're
just
doing
as a
the
question.
best we can.
We're just doing our best that we can. And so share, what some successes that you've had, some failures or things that you watched, or what you were taught. Like I was taught to do it this way because of, and when we can share ideas as a community that way, we all get to
we
grow.
all benefit. It's one of the
And-
things I noticed about creative people. They're more than willing to share. If they found something good that works, they share. If they found a way of doing something, they share, because that's what creative people do. They want to see other people be as creative.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, and things work very different. It's like the OSD tile seam that we did. This rule of thumb is 1/4 of an inch seam, and then you fold it to the one side. Once you sew that together, there's so much bulk there that does not work, right? You have to have 1/2 an inch seam in there, and they have to be ironed open.
Yes,
you can't
they
do
have to be
can't do the locking
No.
situation. So I have a different way of putting them together with my mat and pins
Yes.
and everything else like that, because it doesn't work that way. There's just too much bulk. And so the rule of thumb that works for this doesn't necessarily work
with
there.
tiling. No.
And there's some of the Kimberbell quilts that I've put together. Again, rule of thumb is like I do 1/4 of inch. I have found that I have to change a couple of things to get them to lay
You got to tweak it
better.
Yeah.
And we learn that by other people making suggestions or doing it a different way and all that kind of stuff. So so this is open. I want to see what you guys have to say about seams, like what you do,
Add to it.
why you do it, what you have found works better. Like if I'm doing, I don't know, half square triangles, if I do my seams this way or whatever, I find that does this, so that we can share.
Yeah, absolutely. Share with us. Help us out.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so that's our weekly dose
That's it.
for the week.
Yes.
And we will catch you next week.
Wednesday.
And I got an idea for that one.
Oh, good. Okay. So there you go. We're already working on next week. Okay.
All right, so have a great week and get out and enjoy the long weekend. It's supposed to be sunny.
Supposed to be nice. Yeah,
Supposed to be sunny.
exactly. So
All right.
have some fun.
Okay, bye. Nope, wrong button.